Uh, Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Hello. Ooh. Good evening, afternoon, morning, night, whatever, whenever. I'm wearing my tiny little Christmas hat. Surprised it stayed on my head. I didn't even take the tag off. I got it when it was on clearance after Christmas when it was cheap. Um, and it was just sitting on my bed, so I decided to put it on my head. I'm taking a little bit of a break from work, even though I was already breaking. And we're gonna get two cards. We'll do Lenormand or I Ching. I'm using the Diceology cards. That's why it's a front one, because I was actually working on my laptop. So we'll see what's up. I had such an interesting. there's this little synchronicity that keeps popping up, and it's interesting when it plays out with people. And I guess I didn't really think about it in one of the ways I could have thought about it, but I went to the store yesterday. I'm gonna do this over here so I don't drop cards on the floor. I went to the store yesterday and I was looking for some panko breadcrumbs because I'm trying to fry some pickles. And I made some fried mushrooms in the air fryer the other day, and I used plain breadcrumbs, and that was not it. It was not it. I mean, they were fine. Also, I rinsed the mushrooms instead of towel cleaning them, which probably made them super watery, because y'all know mushrooms hold water. And I mean, there were a few other things I was missing, so I ended up I already talked about it. Anyway, I was in the store looking for some panko breadcrumbs, and it took me and my brother a while to find them the first time. But we were just kind of sort of going off of memory. And we were down this one aisle. He was like, I think they're in this aisle. And I was just following him. And then he was like, I don't think they're here. Like, are they in the app? Or can you check the app to see which aisle they're in? Because on the Walmart app, they tell you exactly what aisle everything is in. They will give you an aisle letter and an aisle number. And on the Meyer app, it'll be like produce. I'm like, okay, but the produce section is huge. Like, is it the chilled part of produce? Is it like the outside part of produce? Like, I need more. Or they'll be like grocery. I'm like, okay. I need a little bit more than just that. The Walmart app, really nice. If you're in Walmart and you don't know where the price scanner is and you got the Walmart app, they have the little price checker. I like the Walmart app, okay? This isn't a paid advertisement for Walmart. But I pulled out my phone to look at where the breadcrumbs were. And then he looked over. He was like, oh, there's a can right here. And there was a can where we had stopped for me to look on the app to see where the breadcrumbs were. One can of the panko breadcrumbs that I wanted right there. I was like, oh, okay, well, that was the last thing on the list. Let's go check out. It was just so interesting how that happened. Oh, I got the first card. Okay. I want to get one more. Oh, there it is. Thank you. Is that a... I keep seeing these ones. Bottom of the deck is the Six of Clubs. A shift in the wind, a leaf caught in an eddy, and the birth of a new language. I mean, I should not be surprised. This is the card that I see the most. 54, 12, 3, 7, 5, and 1. Also, no, I'll wait for that. I'll wait for that. So, the Ace of Spades again. Tapping into the seed of all creation. Understanding what predates all. Things that must remain in the dark. This is interesting because of a reading I saw earlier that was kind of sort of about primordial cosmic architect forces and beings, and about how it's time to sort of tap into that energy. And I was like, I'm just now starting to feel good. I'm not trying to tap into that energy because I feel like whenever I get close to something like that, I get frustrated. because it feels like the world is not what it was supposed to be. And it's just like, how did things even get this bad? I'm just like, you know what? I'm starting to finally feel good. I'm not like on 10 all the time. I found my heart again. We're calming down. And I guess like if I can't look at that and not get triggered, then am I grounded? I just feel like it's time for some other folks to try to start doing the same. Right. And I feel like I was released from that. So it's time for me to focus on my life. The Three of Hearts is the other card where form and function align, the power of words to brighten and terraform. I like this because tapping into the seed of all creation and understanding what predates all, that's more than. I feel like the key is that understanding, right? And then we have where form and function align and the power of words to brighten and terraform. I feel like a lot of times we either, I feel like societally, at least here, we are more about the form of things than the function. It's all about the image that we project and how the public is conditioned to receive that projection, right? It's like the little dangly things in airplanes. They don't really do anything, but I guess they keep people from panicking because it's supposed to be like laughing gas or something like that, right? So if you're getting like a little goofy, that doesn't really help, but it keeps you from panicking. And it reminds me of this other show. It got real emotional. Like my heart opened the same day I watched that show, and I almost cried. Some of these animes, they be really pulling at your heartstrings. I'm like, oh my gosh! And someone lost their life, and everybody started laughing. And then one of the characters got mad. He's like, "Why is everyone laughing?" And then one of the characters is like, it's because of these fruits called smiles. And basically, it's taken all of their emotions. And I was like, oh, snap. And in the show, okay, well, I didn't name the show. So if somebody's watching the show, it's an old show, okay? But it was like literally hundreds of episodes ago, literally years ago, we were introduced. Yeah, yeah, it wasn't long ago. We were introduced to these fruits because of where they were being manufactured and because of what they were being manufactured for, but we never knew like where the materials came from and how the people where it's all harvested were affected by it. And there's some other shady stuff going on to some children, believe it or not. Um, because it's like somebody, let's just say that someone was like modifying kids to look more like how they look so that they didn't feel as alone, number one, and because they made enemies, number two. So anyone naturally born like this is the enemy of the person who wants the children that look like this. Because her thing is like, I'm creating this place where all different manners of people can live together. But she made some enemies. But she wants to maintain the image of her land being a place where all different types of people can live together. Now they all are like kind of sort of subjugated by her, but and so that's the thing about the projection, right? She wants the image of these people also being included in the all under her. But instead of making amends and making things right with those people, instead of the function, having something functional, it's more about the form. It's more about what it looks like on the outside. And I feel like that's kind of sort of the case for a lot of things, right? And it's just like, well, this it's well, I guess that's why people in PR make so much money, right? To make things not a problem or make things look like they're not a problem. But when it comes to tapping into the seed of all creation, it's like on some levels, the form of something and the function of it are inseparable. And, or at least one can complement the other, right? And it's almost like sometimes we discover things, but like we're so heavy in our own projected realities that we can encounter something whose, did y'all hear my stomach? We can encounter something whose form and function are more interconnected, but then we're looking at it like, oh, we can't figure out what this is. We can't figure out what this does. And it's like, well, if you look at it, it's pretty obvious what it does. But since we're so heavy in this projected reality again, it's like we almost can't comprehend the fact that the appearance of something or someone can be who they actually are. It's not always a facade, it's not always a mask. And when it isn't, it actually serves you more. You might get a little bit further, believe it or not. This is interesting because the last lines, we have the power of words to brighten and terraform, but also things that must remain in the dark. So we automatically, that's like secrets, secret languages. It's so, I'll go find it because I can't lend Norman that. It's oh, I just lost it. Yes, okay. There's a card on here and it's exactly that message. It's exactly these two. Let's see if I can find it really quick. And I've actually seen this card recently. There are still cards in here that haven't even that haven't came out yet. I got like what 54 of these, and I feel like I keep seeing the same 10 or 12. Now the fish card is starting to come out, and I love that one. But that's fine. Oh, it's this one right here. Oh no. Well, yeah, that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna pull these two because I really, really, really want some of the Normans. Also, I could do the I Ching. I was gonna do the I Ching. Oh goodness, that's fine. We'll do both. Because this one, it's the two of diamonds. So there's no, the Lenormand is the six through the ace. But what's interesting is it before? No. Before that is the eight of diamonds. But after the cards I pulled is the six of hearts. And then we got the six of clubs at the bottom of the deck. Six of hearts is maximizing or minimizing, limitation or support. Look to the root. Because the root will tell you. The root will tell you what the plan will be, even if it looks like something different. The root will tell you if it'll survive. The root will tell you a lot. Because if it can't, if the roots are effed up, its growth is going to be stunted. So the card that this reminded me of is a forced uprising, an ancient word that stirs ancient things to life, whispered. And it's that whispered part of it. And we kind of see this little, look like a little flattened thing, right? You look at the dice behind it. So it's not completely circular. It's like an egg, but something is already hatched out of it. So it's like the bottom part of the egg, but the top is already popped off, right? And it's upside down. Oh, it's like an umbrella. Okay. 3895153. The cards that it was in between 10 of Hearts and the King of Hearts. So I'm excited about that one. A Stargate that leads to fantastic places, correcting what has been misused, stabilizing timelines, and a decision that once made cannot be rescinded. A wise king who settles an impossible dispute, operating in divine order. It's interesting because when I dragged and dropped all of the images to the card faces on makeplayingcards.com, if you're trying to make a deck on makeplayingcards.com right now, apparently they're being produced in Hong Kong, or that's where the payment goes to. So maybe you can get PayPal to work, but I can't remember if there was some kind of like economic restriction on Hong Kong. I feel like I remember hearing it briefly. But I called my bank and I was like, "Why isn't the payment going through?" And they're like, "Oh, this is coming from Hong Kong, so there is nothing that we can do about that." Thankfully, PayPal got me. I could get it through PayPal, but there's this other deck that I wanted to buy from this other website, and it won't go through. It won't go through my bank, and it isn't like PayPal. It literally says like this item not available for PayPal, and it was a cute little deck, honestly. But now I'm just like, I wonder if that's coming from Hong Kong. I don't know. Um, why am I talking about that? Because this wasn't intentional. A message of a king on a king card. I just went by the numbers, right? So it was like I started the ace is the one for everything, but I only made nine for each suit. So then I started with the jokers to make the one, and then I worked my way up for the last two suits. And then it just went boom, 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 boom. I think I did the gold set of dice on the feminine ones, which were the hearts and the diamonds, and then I did the like straight up purple set on the masculine ones, which was the clubs and the ace clubs and the spades. Anyway, I just thought it was interesting that there it mentions a king on a king card. A Stargate that leads to fantastic places, correcting what has been misused, stabilizing timelines, a decision that once made cannot be rescinded, a wise king who settles an impossible dispute, and operating in divine order. Honestly, I think I've started to mention it. I don't like this card. I don't like that it sounds like such a final decision. But just because I don't like it doesn't mean that it doesn't hold any weight. Sometimes there are decisions that we make, there are things that we do that we can't escape the consequences and repercussions of. Right? It's like you can't untake a life, for example. Right? If you take a life, you can't undo that action. And so anything that you have to reap from that is what you have to reap from that. And I don't think this is necessarily about taking a life, but how do these interact with each other? There's a nine and a three, and then the six was behind it. So that's a 369 together. But only the six is actually a six. The nine is a 10. The three is a king, which would be a 14. Because page 11, knight 12, queen 13, king 14. But only the six was actually a six. And what does that mean? Harmony is harmony, either way. It's hard to mistake actual harmony for anything else. But when it comes to the energy of the nine and the energy of the three, those can be mistaken for other things. Three is a very catalytic number, right? So it's something that happens to get us to move in a certain direction, but we don't necessarily have to do it, right? Nine is a number of completion, of endings and closings and um, borders in some way, because it does mark like a terminal, a terminus. Um, but again, when something is over, it may not necessarily be over. It could come back in some way. Or there are things that it's like we sit it down because we think we're done, but maybe we'll get more information later that's like that lets us know that it's not actually over. But with the six, with true harmony, it always is what it is, right? Now, it could be the case that someone is pretending like they're happy with whatever, right? But I feel like I'll take that back. But for actual harmony, it's like it is what it is. Um, Giving and receiving, right? It is what it is. Now, there could be a little bit of, um, especially when you're talking about different people or different types of people, there could be a little bit of not confusion, but if people give in different ways, if we're talking about love or affection, then they may not have necessarily have the same like love language, for example, right? Someone may give you gifts to express their love, and you may give someone, I think, words of affirmation to express your love, right? And sometimes, a lot of times, the way that we give love is the way that we like to receive it, right? So the gift giver may feel that they're not appreciated by the affirmator because they never receive a gift from that person. And the affirmator may feel like they're not appreciated by the gift giver because they never receive those kind words or those words of affirmation. And so the affirmator might think that the love of the gift giver is empty because it's all stuff. And the gift giver may think that the love of the affirmator is empty because it isn't anything tangible, right? And so that's a case, I guess, where discord or disharmony can arise because of a lack of understanding. But then I guess it could also be argued that there's some communication that's not happening there or some recognition that's not happening there. So is it truly harmonious? I like semantics sometimes, y'all. Sometimes. Other times I don't. um, but where is this taking me? I just thought that was interesting to know. This is about portals and timelines and decisions that we make. This is about those. Oh, somebody wasn't in a gift giving mood. Am I a gift giver? Yeah, I feel like the way that I express my love is different than the way that I like to receive it, though. I don't know if I'm weird in that, but I literally just noticed it, I think last year, because I'm not necessarily like, I'm not super big on receiving gifts. Um, like, I like to receive like words of affirmation, physical touch is one that I don't let a lot of people know about, and in some ways, quality time. But when I express my love, I love like giving gifts. I don't like receiving them as much though. And maybe it's because I don't really want for a lot of things, honestly. Like whenever Christmas comes around for the past few years, it's like I don't even know what I want. Like or when my birthday comes, it's like, what do you want? I'm like, I don't know. I want to travel. I want experiences. I'm reaching that point in my life where I want experiences. Um, but yeah, I noticed that. And for me, because it's like if I see something that reminds me of somebody, I like to buy it and give it to them. Um, and because like since quality time is one of the ways that I like to receive love sometimes, um, then sometimes I'll like buy things to experience with other people, if that makes any sense. I'm not gonna get into it, but I guess I will. So for example, like one of my friends one of my good friends didn't have a TV or a PlayStation, and I wanted to play PlayStation with him. So I bought a TV. Now the TV is mine, but I spent a lot of time at his place, so I was like, "This is my TV for when I'm here." Because he was always like, "Oh, I don't need a TV. I don't need a TV." But when he got the TV, all of a sudden he needed it whenever I was there. Anyway, anyway, so the TV is still mine, but I bought him a PlayStation because I wanted to play PlayStation with him. Um, right. So when we went to London, he returned my gift of a PlayStation with the plane ticket to go to London. Right. And he likes to remind me. I'm like, first of all, that was an exchange, but the plane ticket was a little bit more expensive than the PlayStation. So, but like, or if like I'm going out to eat with somebody, right? Um, I went out to eat with some coworkers, and it was payday, and I wanted to take shots. So I paid for everyone's shots, and in the moment, it was fine. Afterward, I was like, "Oh, those are expensive." um, but yeah, that's how like sometimes I will just straight up give gifts. Like I have a friend who loves Uno. So whenever I see like a non-standard or non-traditional deck of Uno cards, it reminds me of her. Um, and I bought some cards and I wanted to give them to her, but my mom was like, "You ain't giving her them cards. Why?" I was like, "Because they remind me of her and she likes Uno, and she kind of sort of collects Uno cards." Excuse me. But yeah, that's why I like to give gifts because for me, it's a way of like expressing to people that, hey, I was thinking about you and I care about you. Um, right. I get stuff from my little brother like all the time. Um, my other little brother, not so much. And one day I will make up for that. But anyway, why am I talking about that? I don't remember. I was on that tangent for so long, I literally forgot. But this thing about stabilizing timelines and the decision that once made can't be rescinded, it speaks to the consequences of our actions. Our actions have, it's like, it's this energetic precedent that ripples out into the environment. And so, like, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, both physically, energetically, mentally, and emotionally. We'll say both physically and energetically. And so there may be things that you've been doing, we've been doing that go against what it is that we want to manifest into our lives. And it's like we're done with the action, or we do the action one time, or we whatever, but we don't realize the ramifications and the strength of those energetic waves that'll come in, that are going to come back in. And I think that's what I'm feeling about the decision that once made cannot be rescinded, tying into this Stargate and this energy of stabilizing timelines. It's like we have to begin to really act in accordance with what it is that we want our life to be like energetically, right? Which is why a minute ago I was saying stuff like the energy that we pursue something with is going to affect the vibration once we get it. And if you're going about getting something in shady ways, then when you get it, expect for something to not be right, or expect to not have it for that long, or expect for it to come with some kind of price, because that's the energy that you put onto it. And the divine can give you something, and the less than divine can give you something. And a lot of times, impatience and some other things, jealousy, envy, and some other things, lead us to seeking less than divine forces. And it comes with a price that we have to pay. And if you keep making the same decisions, or if you keep making the same mistake, it just further amplifies and amplifies and amplifies. Not only does it amplify the waves, but it also increases the number that are coming in. And that's what, like, we've stabilized our timeline around these decisions that come with consequences that are inescapable, because it ripples out. And it's like, if you're saying one thing but doing another, or if you're trying to manifest one thing but mentally or emotionally you're on the opposite end of the spectrum, like, with the tapping into the seed of all creation, it's like we need to understand a little bit on a broader spectrum how things come to be. And I feel like if we understood how things come to be, it would probably alleviate some of the frustration that we may experience, right? I mean, kind of, but also not, right? We're all human. And just because we do something doesn't mean that we want to face the consequences, face the music, right? A lot of people do things that they don't want to face the backlash of, because it seems like for some reason societally, or not even societally, maybe it's just what human nature has become. We just kind of sort of expect to get off the hook or something. I don't know if we expect it. Some people, yeah, for some things. And it's because of these patterns. And again, that's kind of sort of how the laws, if you want to call them laws, of cause and effect have gotten effed the F up, because it's not, it's like for some things we've been diminishing the effect when we cause something to happen. We try to reduce that blowback, and it don't always work. It don't always work. Hold up. No, that's not what I wanted. I'm going to find the Lenormand correspondences right now. That's what I'm going to do. Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, I was like, thank you. Oh, I can't wait for those. That was such an interesting little experiment. I'm. It was basically this thing that popped up on my Instagram that was about like good and evil. And the good was like, oh, I'm the good. All of the good things that have happened in your life, I'm responsible for. And then like it was chaos instead of evil. The chaos was like, oh, I bet the good told you that I'm the one that's responsible for all of the bad stuff that happened in your life. And that is true. But you know up front that that's what I'm here to do. And also, we're two sides of the same coin. There can be no good without evil. There can be no light without shadow. So, like, and it's like, yeah, but just because I understand that doesn't mean that I'm I'm about to go out and start doing evil and expecting no consequences. Like, I'll let somebody else play the other role, and I'll continue to play the role that I want to play. Okay, which is like the not. Now, I don't mind a little bit of chaos, constructive chaos, like a tower moment. I don't mind something falling apart to allow something better to come in. Because especially like me being the type of person that can be really, 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 really comfortable, or that's the way I was a lot more in the past, especially. But I can get really comfortable. Even if I don't like a situation, I could also be a little lazy, or a lot of lazy and unmotivated. And so I would get stuck in these places until something would happen to eject me out of them. Sometimes it had to be something kind of extreme, right? So I don't mind a little bit of the falling apart, falling away energy, because again, it leads to something even better. And order isn't necessarily always right if you look at the law and order, especially in this country, because it's all designed to do something. It's designed with a purpose in mind. And who was it built to serve? And in what ways was it established to do that? Right? Order isn't always right. Good isn't always good. It's subjective. Right? Sometimes good does more hurt and harm than it does benefit. And that's why we need to practice wisdom, right? And that also goes back to the wise king who settles an impossible dispute. Sometimes we have to use wisdom to, and that's another thing about, oh, what was it? It's not progenitors in a primordial pool, it's the other one. That which predates all, understanding that which predates all. Because when we understand that which predates all, we can see the chain of cause and effect and the chain of events, and how something that happened here may have played out in a way that we didn't necessarily expect. But if we understand that, then we can utilize those powers of creation, right? Instead of just, it completes that understanding. All right. That's all you got to know. It completes the understanding. So I'm actually going to start with what came out last, and then we'll work our way up, because this is the freshest on my brain, even though I could have already forgot it. The Ten of Cups and the King of Cups. Let's see. Hearts. Sorry. Ten of Hearts is the dog. I had a dream about a dog last night, and the King of Hearts is the house, which is interesting. The dog in the house. The dog house. Oh, who in the doghouse? The doghouse. Well, doghouses actually aren't bad for outside dogs. Excuse me, right? A doghouse kind of, sort of, in some ways, provides the little bit of shelter that the dog would need when its own natural biological defenses don't, or can't accommodate for that, right? Let's say that it's super hot outside and you got a dog. The dog probably needs some shade. Dogs can't tolerate heat well. I learned that in a very tragic series of events, that now I'm like, wait, hold up. But dogs can't tolerate heat well, right? Not excessive heat. Because all they can do is pant. That's like the one way they have to cool their body down, is panting. And then they have, like, some dogs have a lot of fur, and they just don't have, you know, great cooling mechanisms outside of, right? Mm. And so the doghouse provides shade for the dog. So at least it isn't exposed to direct sunlight, right? Maybe it's ventilated. Maybe you got a fancy little fan in there to help cool the dog down, right? If it's super cold outside, maybe you put a little bit of hay in there, or maybe there's something to warm the dog. Um, right? It's like, naturally we do have these defenses, but we can also find ways to cover our weaknesses. But the dog in the house, that's a loyal heart, right? Dog is loyalty, home is where the heart is. It's a loyal heart. And again, if we're talking about decisions that we make in stabilizing timelines, that's getting the emotional body in line with the mental body, in line with the physical body, and in line with the, I want to say, dream etheric body, because it's aligning all of that to the body of potential that you want to tap into, instead of the one that you typically do, right? And that's kind of, sort of, that loyal heart energy. It's a heart that doesn't betray you because it's been healed. Look to the root, right? Because again, if the root is effed up, you're going to be on that minimizing and limitation side of things instead of the maximizing and support. And I think that's the only card that came out like that. Because I think I was going through it and I was like, oh, this is like really, really good. And then I was like, oh, wait, this could also be not that great. It depends on where we align ourselves on this scale, on the pole of that polarity, of that duality. There's this one game that I played, and there was this character who's one of her favorite foods or beverages was called generosity. It was like generosity tea. And then every time she'd be like, generosity. And generosity just popped into my mind because of that. Um, but yeah, it's the loyal heart. And to have a loyal heart, it kind of sort of involves a certain amount of like shadow work and healing and forgiveness, because without that shadow work and healing and forgiveness, your heart will turn on you real quick. It will. It'll get defensive. It'll feel inferior. It'll go into attack mode. And then it'll convince your brain and everything else. And then not only is your heart aligning to something that isn't of the highest vibrations, we'll say, but then your mind also aligns to that. And when your heart and your mind are aligned to that, there are these things that you start to put out into the world, into the universe, energetically from that not great place. That sometimes you have to deal with the repercussions of. Right? So now let's do the I Ching. See, this is what I like to do over here. Whatever happened yesterday for like an hour, I'm like, what is this? This is not the level that like this is like that's legacy channel stuff. Like this Hierophant is where at least I try to go a little bit deeper. And I give myself permission to just go there. Right. It's also kind of sort of starting to trickle to, to the other side too, but at least I try to be a little bit nicer over there. Oh yeah, I was like, what am I looking for? Excuse me. Now I'm actually gonna guess that this is double water. And we'll see if I'm right. Water, water. No, this is actually water over wind. Wait. Oh, that's why. Right? Yeah, this is water over wind. This will be interesting. Water over wind, that's an energy of vapor, water vapor, rain cycles, precipitation. Before it precipitates out, it's all of the vapor in the air. Humid, it's a humid energy. So if it's hot, it cooks. But if it's not hot, then you kind of don't notice it really. Right? Or maybe some people do. I don't know. It only sucks when it's super hot and it feels like you're swimming in air. Water over wind is number 48, Fountainhead. Oh, I don't think I've gotten this one before. If I have, I hadn't gotten it in a while. And that's the thing, because the on the Legacy channel, I believe, I was talking about how if all of your chakras are aligned, you can actually feel your Kundalini energy come out of your body. Because on the crown chakra, there's this Fontini bone, which means little fountain. And it's like that softest spot on your head when you're a baby, but you can feel the energy come out of it. Things that I learned in my meditation class. Things that I knew before my meditation class, but learned what it was in my meditation class. I was like, "Oh, this, yeah, I've been feeling this back when I was meditating heavy." I can't do that no more. I think I've tried. That like 2 hour meditation phase of my life is over. I just can't go back. I've seen this. This is the symbol, and I'm pretty sure I've seen this lately. but I don't think I've read this. Maybe I was just flipping through and I noticed it. This is Ching. Like I Ching Ching? Or just like a different Ching? Social politics may change, but people's primitive needs never do. Okay, I think I have read this lately. I have. Social politics may change, but people's primitive needs never do. Nourish the people's primitive needs, which is interesting because yesterday, or when I did the affirmators, so hey, here's that little synchronicity to make me not feel as bad. And I'm pretty sure that was over here. It came out, it was about the conscious mind against the ego, right? Or the conscious mind against the id. And the id was that more primitive part of ourselves. And so I guess if the id isn't satisfied, then she acts up. It could be the shadow side. And it isn't about necessarily giving in to your shadow side and your darker impulses. But once you do that work, it's like it's not about taming it. It's more about bringing it in because it feels like more than anything, it's like that child who acts out because it doesn't get attention, because it doesn't get love. And so it adopts this like um no attention is bad attention type of energy. And so when it lashes out, or when it acts, yeah, when it lashes out, when it acts out, when it causes a stir, when it causes a commotion, it's doing it for attention. And that's the only attention it gets. It's like when I am behaving, when I am nice, no one pays attention to me. And if this is the only way where I can get some attention, then that's how we're gonna play the game. Right? And it's like, no, you don't have to do that anymore. But you can't just tell it that it doesn't have to do that anymore. You have to show it that it doesn't have to do that anymore. Because if you don't, it'll just continue to act out, right? Failing to reach the depths of people's primitive needs will cause your undertaking to fall short. You must instill greater care and study into philosophy and the divine. To succeed, you must reach deep down into the people's primitive needs. Understand the underlying emotions at play. That is how you navigate the situation. The situation at hand is much deeper, much more meaningful than you initially perceive it to be. Adversity and troubles take caution. Okay. Oof, that's not great for now. Mars, is it retrograde yet? Are you retrograde yet, Mars? Or like, does that happen later today? It's just so. I think I'm realizing where some of that frustration comes from. And I think it's because, like, I like to bring order to things. Maybe it's the Libra energy in my chart. I like to bring Mars is still direct. When do you go retrograde? Oh, in 18 minutes. Mars goes retrograde in 18 minutes, according to this app. Okay. Work. So within half an hour, Mars will be retrograde. Enjoy the last few things while you can. Quick. Drive before the cars start moving backwards. Sorry. um, but I like to bring balance to things. And if I can't bring balance to something, it frustrates me. And that's why sometimes I'm just like, you know what? If you're not going to listen, if you're not going to take whatever, if you're not actually going to fix something that you can fix, I'm out. Cause it ain't no use in me stressing over something that you ain't even stressing over. Or if you are, you ain't doing it enough to begin to fix it. And so I'm just like, I'm out. I ain't got time. And it's not that I don't have time, it doesn't serve anybody, right? Because it's like sometimes we really just have to go through it to understand why we had to go through it. And we can kind of sort of use other people, other substances, other activities as crutches, right? But the time for crutches is over. It feels like we've been in spiritual, emotional, mental, and for some people, I'm sure, even physical rehabilitation for a hot minute. And sometimes when we're going through rehabilitation, and I've never done it personally, but sometimes I think when someone's going through rehabilitation, it's like it's one thing to know that there are things that you used to be able to do that you are no longer able to do. But it's another thing when you're going through the motions and you're feeling that pain and everything within you is like screaming for you to stop. And it's like before, like it wasn't this difficult, it wasn't this hard. And I want to be there, but I don't want to be in pain and I don't want to be disappointed. Sometimes you got to risk disappointment. Sometimes you got to risk it if you want the biscuit. That's what they say. Or to win the race, you have to be in the race, right? Or anything else. But yeah, so we have the fountainhead. That is not what I expected this to be. The well? I guess that's the well. It's the fountainhead and the well are two to me so contrastingly different things. Like the fountainhead is where all the water comes out, right? At the top of the fountain typically. And then the well is like all of the you gotta like dig down into the earth to get to that water. And I guess like there it's a similar energy, but it's just like inverted. Which reminds me of another card. Oh my gosh, it's almost been an hour. That's fine. Let's go find this card. Sorry. This is a card, I've only seen it a few times, but I know I've seen it before. I kind of want to read all these to see which ones I haven't been seeing, but also I just want to wait for them to like come out, you know? I don't want to force it. I don't want to force it. Okay, I haven't been through like almost this whole deck. There's one card that was upside down. Oh, that's a card I haven't gotten before. The Jack of Hearts. Hold up. Okay, it's not meant for me to pull it. I didn't see it. But there's a card that has the word inversion on it, and I couldn't remember what else was on there. But there is this energy of inversion. And it's also that like look to the root energy, right? Because the difference between a well and a fountain is that we like we do this. Like we move the fountain on top of the well, and then the fountain pulls up the water from the bottom, and then it spits it out for us in some ways. I know that that isn't necessarily how fountains work, but in this metaphorical fountain, it is. It's like we move or we construct this fixture on top of the well, and that's what comes out. But if something were to happen to the water, it would be easier if the fountain wasn't there, right? And so it's like when things are aligned, then the fountain energy is easier because you don't have to crank the bucket down and then pull it back up. But in the case where something needs to be troubleshooted, it makes it more difficult when you have this huge fountain on top of it, right? And then it's like, well, is that something within the fountain or is that the source of the water itself, right? Like maybe there are these passageways that allow the water to come out of the fountain and they get gunked up, right? Or maybe it is the actual water. I don't know. But there's something about taking care of one's primitive needs. It kept saying primitive needs. But we got the Ten of Cups and the King of Cups energy. I guess it isn't inherently bad, right? If we are taking care of our primitive needs. And what are the primitive needs of people? One of our primitive needs is actually connection, more or less. Some people don't like to admit it, but for a lot of people, connection is one of those primitive needs. And whenever those needs go unmet, things happen, right? Now, there are also other primitive needs, like, I don't know, the ability to be able to breathe and to live life, to not be riddled with bullets is a primitive need, right? To feel. And it's also interesting because, like, there are some needs that we have now that aren't necessarily primitive. But just because they're not primitive doesn't mean that they're not needs. And it speaks to the element of social advantage, but not only social advantage, also like real life advantage, like quality of life advantage, right? Like clean water, right? Now, water is a primitive need. So maybe that wasn't the best example. But some people would say that, electricity is a need nowadays, that internet is a need nowadays because so much happens online, right? Even to apply for some jobs, you got to do it online, right? And now it's like more and more and more people are kind of sort of moving to direct deposit instead of paper checks, and so that isn't necessarily a primitive need, but or that doesn't necessarily make the internet a primitive need. Anyway, I don't think I gave the best examples. But as society has evolved, our needs have evolved to keep us in a place of not being able to compete necessarily, but just to it's not about competition. It is just it's like it's I don't know how to describe it, but our needs have evolved and changed, okay? I'm good. And if I do relate that back to this, I feel like this could speak because we do have this like Stargate, right? And we have this correcting what has been misused. And so it's almost like, oh, I lost it. That's why I need to stop trying to explain it and just say it first. Come back, thought. Oh, I almost had it. I almost had it. Lack mentality. That's what it is. Because when we only focus on how our needs aren't being met, that's the predominant frequency that we put out. And that's what stabilizes us on the timeline that we're on. But it's like there's this opportunity to step into a place first energetically where all of our needs are met. And one of my favorite things to do back in last February when I was hungry and I didn't know how I was going to pay my rent last February, March, and April. I would love to just be like, to just lay on my bed, close my eyes, and just be like, in this moment right now, I'm not hungry. In this moment right now, my rent isn't due. In this moment right now, I'm not on the streets because I've been evicted. In this moment right now, everything is okay. In this moment right now, I need nothing. I want for nothing. And just like those moments, I was like, yes. I loved it. And it almost reminds me of Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt when she's like, you can tolerate almost anything for 10 seconds. And so you count to 10. Um, this is so, I feel like I'm starting to relate a lot more to someone that I met recently. And I never thought that I necessarily would that much because I never saw myself using my voice, honestly. And this is a person that uses their voice a lot. And so in the past, I was always like, I feel like we're on like two separate wavelengths of like what we do in some way. But it's like now I can see myself doing things that I didn't necessarily see myself doing before. And I still don't think that that's for me, but it's just interesting. It's just interesting how things change and times change and how situations can either grow us or break us, and how certain spaces that maybe weren't necessarily conducive to us in the past may become a little bit more conducive to us in the future or in the present. Anyway, back to this. That was one of the things that I really like to do. And it made it easier to just like trust. Not necessarily, just it calmed the mind and it eased the nerves. So before the doghouse, we have this Ace of Spades. Is this the woman? The Ace of Spades might be the woman. I hope it ain't the woman, because then it would be the woman in the doghouse, or the doghouse and the woman. But hey, dogs can be women or females, right? And males. So we actually had a female dog. She was amazing. I loved her so much. Because we could just chill and I could pet her and she wouldn't try to attack me. Like this dog, his mouth is so big. I actually like, I'm a fairly large dude, but my wrists aren't the biggest. My wrists aren't the biggest. Um, and he can fit my whole wrist in his mouth. And sometimes he was just like, he was jumping at me and like kind of snapping at me a little bit. He was playing. He wasn't like attacking me, but still, I'm like, you're a little too strong for me. I like small dogs that I can hold in my lap and pick up and pet as if they are children, I guess. I don't know. Let's see. Hello? There we go. Ace of Spades is, let's see. Ace of Spades is the woman. Oh, it's the woman, which is fine. The woman in the doghouse. Somebody to put somebody out in the cold, and she done built a house. She done built a house out there. She'd rather rescue herself. She started to give to herself what no one else would. And because she started to do that, that stabilizes her new timeline and sets her up to go through these stargates and portals to experience fantastic things. And once she made that decision, and once she started to see the spot and the place that it put her in, that's why it will never be rescinded. Because it's like things are too good. It's things are too good. Even when things aren't great, they are still vastly better than they were. There is no going back on that decision. But the woman is standing alone. Well, the woman is with the Three of Cups. Kind of, right? The Three of Essences is where the inner child is introduced. The Ace of Zones is, I know what the Ace of Essences is. It's easy to say what the Ace of Realms is, and the Ace of Souls. The Ace of Zones, it's the mind, but not a singular mind. It's like the mental plane, the whole plane. And what's good about the mental plane is that there are no barriers or boundaries on what is real and what is fiction, what is possible, what is not possible, what is feasible, what is infeasible. Is that a word? Or not feasible? It just all is. Also, there's no worry on if it's been done before. And it honestly just feels like potential. Like the Ace of Zones is just straight up potential. And then the Three of Essences is when we begin to kind of sort of tap into the energy of our inner child a little bit, or we start to knock on the door of the inner child, right? Ooh, I like this. So at the Two of Essences, that's when mommy and daddy come together, masculine and feminine. And the Three of Essences is when the child comes. And the Four of Essences is when they're all working harmoniously. The Five of Essences is when that child starts to grow up and it starts to take on its own identity. And so at some point, or all throughout that time, there are these conversations that happen. But there is a moment when it doesn't have to happen. But it's possible that there's a moment when a parent recognizes that their child is their own person, and that their child is starting to make decisions for itself, and there's an opportunity for the parent to accept that child as that child is and to love and encourage that child anyway, or to try to exert some control and to force some things onto that child that may lead them to um, create shadows within themselves, right? Lock parts of themselves away, force them out in the cold, and then they kind of sort of just they freeze over time, and then they kind of darken. But this is beautiful because we have potential itself. And then at the Three of Essences, we do have a child, an inner child, if you will. And the inner child is the part of us that has an imagination, right? Now, it ain't necessarily like healed right here, but this is the energy of it, right? That it's like the newest thing. So let's, oops, oops. Well, you know what? Let's just look at the Six of Clubs and see what this is. I should know what this is. This is Six of Clubs, right? Yeah, it is. Let's look at the Six of Clubs and see what this is at the bottom of the deck. And it's almost like it's time for feminine energy to begin to explore itself, to see what it's actually capable of instead of what the cross. Okay, we got the cross at the bottom of the deck. All right. It's like it's time for feminine energy to see what it's capable of instead of like, what masculine energy kind of sort of tried to relegate it to, and what masculine energy said that it was good at, and what masculine energy said that it wasn't. Okay, there's no in between. It's either super, super zoomed in or super zoomed out. Ace of Swords, Three of, excuse me, Ace of Swords, Three of Chalices. This is, which came out first? Yeah. One second. Need to make sure. I think it was the Ace and then a Three. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Okay. So this is gonna be Water Over Heaven. So first we had Water Over Wind. Now we have Water Over Heaven. Water Over Heaven is number 5. Patience. Ooh, we love that word over here. Patience, waiting for nourishment. This is new. Shoe. Shoe? How do I? Shoe. I think it's shoe. X makes a sh sound like shia. Shia is XI. Xiao is XIA. XIAO. Xiao chong. Xiao is small or little. I don't know what shu means. But this is patience and waiting for nourishment. In the wake of difficulties, do not react hastily. Instead, take no action. The situation will not change simply because you force or will it to. The outcome will come from the divine. Put your faith in the natural flow of the divine. Clouds form in the sky and rise up toward heaven. Oh, I was talking about that in the water over wind, right? Water cycles. The clouds must now wait for the harmony of heaven and earth to discharge its store of rain. Know your purpose and stay constant and true to that purpose. The endeavor of an extraordinary undertaking will be followed by meritorious achievement. And I love that. Because then it's like, with this being up here, it's like there's the opportunity for us to have stayed true to who we are within ourselves. I don't know why it's in a box, but because like this is the realm of the things that we allow ourselves, right? And it's like, yeah, we can be nasty. Yeah, we can be ugly. There are a whole range of valid human emotions. But when we're tapping into that which predates all, when we're tapping into the energy of the seed of creation, there's an understanding that the energy that we feed the seed will determine what kind of plant we get, right? So it's almost like it doesn't matter if you took the other person's seed. You can be envious of someone else's plant, but if you got their seed, you would have gotten the exact same thing because your energy determines what it becomes. And your root system is an indicator of the type of energy that you'll be able to give it. Because it's almost that energy of like, you can't give someone something that hasn't been put into you, but sometimes we have to be the ones to put things into ourselves, right? I mean, that's kind of sort of how evolution and growth works, because if we can only pour into someone else what was poured into us, then nothing would ever change, right? It's like your grandma poured into your mom what her mom poured into her, and your mom poured into you what her mom poured into her, and you'll pour into your kid what was put into you, and they'll pour into their kid what was put into them, and they'll pour into their kid what was put into them, and they'll pour into their kid what was poured into them. And at some point, somebody has to introduce something new to the situation. And so that's why it's like, on one hand, yeah, the way that you were raised is valid in terms of the mindset that you approach life with. But at a certain point, you're responsible. We're all responsible for ourselves. And we can't always blame how we were raised and what we didn't have access to, mentally, spiritually, or emotionally, right? Now, physically, it works a little bit different because of the systems in play right now. And because that's a whole game in and of itself. But internally within you, that's stuff that you can work on, right? And I guess that's the truth of the miracle seed. The truth of the miracle seed is that there is no miracle seed. The truth of miracle water is that there is no miracle water. The truth is that the energy comes from within you. And just like on Space Jam, right? When Bugs was like, that mess was water. Y'all had these skills in y'all the whole time. You just needed a placebo to give you permission to be all that you already are. Right? I actually, if I'm being completely honest, I actually low key one day I was like, I wonder if I should just start like giving myself placebos or like doing little placebo things. Then I was like, no, I'd rather just try to authentically come into, my abilities, because needing the placebo could turn into a crutch, right? Because then it's like, well, oh my gosh, I don't have my placebos, and I know that they weren't really for anything, but without that physical to mental connection, I can't do what I need to do in this moment, right? I'm trying to get a final message over here. So this was a little bit longer than I expected it to be. I enjoy this though, because yesterday was yesterday. I guess I shouldn't be surprised that this card keeps coming out. Ooh, we got a 4 and we got a 6. IVVI. So bottom of the deck is bringing order to thought, proper delegation of tasks, and seeing the internal through the external. 9216163. And then the card that came out is this sweet child again. The 6 of clubs, which was the dog, right? No. Yeah. No. The cross. It was the cross. I literally just saw this. A shift in the wind, a leaf caught in an eddy, and the birth of a new language. The birth of a new language is with that Ace of Swords, and when we understand the power of words. Now, the thing about words is interesting because words are things that we speak, but it's also the vehicle through which we think, right? It's like when you think to yourself, you're thinking to yourself in a language, right? You're not thinking to yourself in pictures or in smells, or I mean, maybe some people do, but there's typically words associated with our thoughts, and thoughts become things, right? So it's like a new language is, it allows us to communicate things that we couldn't communicate before, but it also allows us to interact with what we couldn't interact with before because of the lack of a common language, because of lack of understanding, right? And so with a new language comes inherently a new understanding. And that's what I got. All right, I hope this finds you well. I hope you have a good whatever whenever you see this. I'm gonna do more work because that is my trial. I'm just going to do it. I have been doing it, but I'm just like, I feel like some people don't understand how hard it is for me to do homework. It just, I love learning. I love learning. I don't mind tests. I don't mind exams. I don't like homework. but it's what I have to do right now. And I think that's something else that I'm actually learning right now. Um, and we'll just lump it in with self love, right? Because we'll lump it in with me being invested in myself enough to do the things that I don't want to do, right? And I'm a grown man. I should be able to do a little bit of homework, but it's just like it does something to me, y'all. I'm just like, oh, why? Like there was this one class. I would talk to the professor about the homework. So he knew that I knew how to do the homework. I'm like, in my mind, if you know that I know how to do this, why I gotta do it? Why I gotta turn it in? The conversation that we're having right now alone is enough for you to be able to evaluate how much I understand and grasp the topics at hand. It's like, well, if you understand it, why don't you just do it? Anyway, all right, I'll catch y'all later. Bye. I hope something in here hit for you, helped you. Maybe, maybe not. Times are changing. Don't get swept up in it. One of the easiest ways to get swept up in it is by not letting go of the things that you need to let go of and not proceeding on the things that you need to proceed with. So I'm off to proceed, right?